Ha 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 ha. Stop, Jesus.
What? You're too short.
This content is a purely creative work aimed at enhancing English conversation skills. Stop, Jesus.
Why again?
At 3 p.m., the universe's most famous beings question fame at Starbucks. Jesus walked into the warmly lit Starbucks with the afternoon sun streaming in. He wore a crisp white Oxford shirt, jeans, and white Converse sneakers. His eyes scanned the menu board before approaching the counter.
Hi there, how can I help you today?
The barista greeted with a smile.
Hello. Can I get a cappuccino with an extra shot? Also, how much are those cookies over there?
Jesus asked, pointing to the cookie display.
Which one are you referring to?
The barista inquired.
The brown cookie with black spots that looks quite dry over there.
Jesus replied.
That's the dark chocolate cowboy cookie. It's $2.95 each.
The barista answered.
All right, I'll take one of those as well.
Got it. Just a moment, please.
The barista said. Jesus waited briefly, received his cappuccino and cookie, and then sat down at a corner table, opening a book titled Greek and Roman Mythology. He delved into the stories about the interactions between ancient gods and humans, pondering the lessons within. Of course, Jesus knew that the gods in this book were fictional, but he found that even fictional stories reflected human needs and were good resources to understand what people desired in a deity. A while later, Buddha entered the cafe. Like Jesus, he wore casual jeans and a blue and white Oxford shirt with black Converse sneakers. He too headed to the counter.
Welcome. How can I help you?
The same barista who had greeted Jesus now addressed Buddha.
I'll have a matcha latte, please. And how much is that cookie over there?
Buddha asked, glancing at the cookie display.
Are you perhaps talking about the brown cookie with black spots that looks quite dry over there?
The barista replied with a sly smile.
Wow, yes, that's exactly the one. Can you read my mind? That's amazing.
No, I just guessed. Ha ha. Just kidding. The dark chocolate cowboy cookie is $2.95 each.
The barista answered with a wink.
Haha, I'll take one.
Buddha laughed.
Got it. Just a moment, please.
The barista said, handing back Buddha's card. After a brief wait, Buddha received his drink and cookie, then looked around before spotting Jesus sitting alone. He approached the table with a warm smile.
Hello, Jesus. Long time no see. How have you been?
Buddha greeted.
Hello, Buddha. I've been well. You seem to be looking more stylish. How have you been?
Jesus responded, smiling at Buddha, who was dressed similarly to him.
I've been doing well. So, what book are you reading?
Buddha asked, curious about the thick book on the table.
It's Greek and Roman mythology. There are many interesting stories, but I was thinking about the roles and duties of both mainstream and minor gods and the humans who follow them.
Jesus explained, showing the book.
Fascinating. It seems connected to our experiences as well.
Buddha remarked as he sat down.
Indeed. We each have our stories and teachings, but our fame and influence do not necessarily correlate.
Jesus agreed.
Right? And that doesn't mean one is better or worse, just different.
Buddha pointed out.
Exactly. Being more famous doesn't mean being more important. We all have our roles.
Jesus reflected.
And we each impact people in our own ways. That's what truly matters.
Buddha added.
You're right. The same goes for people. Being famous or wealthy doesn't make someone better.
Jesus continued.
Exactly. Everyone has their own story and strengths.
Buddha agreed. They sipped their drinks and continued their conversation.
Come to think of it, people misunderstand each other because they don't take the time to truly understand.
Jesus mused.
Yes. Misunderstanding stems from a lack of communication.
Buddha agreed.
Look at us. We seemed so different at first, but through conversation, we've found so many commonalities. And that only took a few meetings.
Jesus said.
True. And it's not that differences are bad. They should be respected. It's all about perspective and understanding.
Buddha said.
If more people truly listened and tried to understand each other, the world would be a much better place.
Jesus said.
It's not about who's right or wrong, but about respecting different paths.
Buddha emphasized.
And recognizing that everyone's story is valid. We all have something to learn from each other.
Jesus concluded. At that moment, someone dressed in vibrant clothes and with a friendly smile entered the cafe. After a light conversation with the barista, who burst out laughing, he received a chai latte and a cookie and began looking for a seat. Spotting Buddha and Jesus, he approached them excitedly.
Hello, Buddha. Fancy meeting you here. May I join you?
He asked, looking at Buddha.
Of course, Krishna.
Buddha welcomed.
Wow, Jesus. We're meeting in person for the first time, right? Meeting you feels like meeting a world star. When I first met Buddha a few months ago, I was thrilled. But seeing both of you together is amazing. Today is really late.
Krishna said, his eyes sparkling as he alternated his gaze between Jesus and Buddha. Jesus, somewhat shy, replied,
No, I'm just really, very excited to meet you in person, Krishna.
You mean it's lit?
Krishna asked Jesus.
Oh, yes, it's lit, right.
Jesus smiled, feeling a bit embarrassed.
But Krishna, why did you laugh when you ordered from the barista? We made a little bet, and I think you should settle it.
Buddha said with a smile.
Oh, that. When I asked about the cookie price, the barista told me I was the third person to ask the same question today, so I laughed.
Krishna explained. Buddha laughed and said,
See, Jesus? I won. As I said, Krishna chose the same cookie as us.
Jesus laughed and said,
All right, I'll buy the next round. It's funny how we deities seem to have a connection. All three of us chose the same cookie.
Krishna said,
As I mentioned earlier, meeting you two in person feels like meeting world stars. I now understand how fans feel when they see their idols. It's really lit. Honestly, I feel like asking for your autographs.
The three of them laughed and enjoyed their drinks and cookies together.
What were you discussing before I arrived?
Krishna asked.
We were talking about why we became so famous. Beyond religious beliefs or tendencies, we wanted to understand the scientific, numerical, and realistic reasons behind our fame.
Jesus explained.
Yes, we were thinking about how our teachings and stories spread so widely and became influential. The surprising even to us.
Buddha added.
I often wondered about that too. Honestly, I'm not as famous as you two. Outside of India and the surrounding countries, many people don't know about me. Overcoming this can be challenging, but I've found ways to deal with it.
How did you overcome it?
Jesus asked.
I focus on the importance of my message and believe in myself. I also draw strength from close relationships with other gods like Ganesha, Shiva, and Vishnu. We share and develop each other's beliefs to expand and enhance our influence. Do you have close relationships with other gods?
Krishna asked.
I was mostly close to my disciples. We performed many miracles together and spread the teachings of love and sacrifice.
Jesus replied.
I was also close to my disciples. We shared the journey of enlightenment and spread the truth. While I don't have a special relationship with other gods, my relationship with my followers is the most important.
Buddha explained.
It's interesting that even we gods have important relationships. Looking back, these relationships seem to give us the strength to continue our work.
Krishna said.
Indeed. We are each doing important work in our own ways. By learning from and respecting each other, we create a better world.
Jesus said.
When we respect and acknowledge each other's teachings, we achieve greater understanding and peace.
Buddha agreed. Krishna nodded.
I'm delighted to have this conversation with you. It reminds me how much we can learn from each other.
Krishna added,
Do you think our appearance contributes to our fame? I believe the way people visually recognize and connect with us can affect their devotion and interest.
Jesus pondered.
That's an interesting point. While our appearance might influence people's trust in us, the real power lies in our teachings and messages. In fact, much of our appearance is shaped by what people want to see.
I agree. Our appearance might initially attract people's interest, but ultimately, it's the philosophical impact on their lives that maintains their devotion.
Buddha said. Krishna nodded.
Right? We are visually depicted as the gateway to our teachings.
And no matter how we are depicted externally, it's just a shell.
Buddha emphasized. Krishna nodded again.
I'm glad we could discuss this. It's exciting to share these thoughts. I recently had an interesting experience at Trader Joe's in the US. I bought a little known cheap product that turned out to be fantastic. I was amazed at how something not famous could be so good.
Jesus, intrigued.
Really? What was it?
Krishna smiled.
It was Trader Joe's vitamin E oil blend. At first it didn't seem special, but after using it, my skin improved noticeably. I was curious why it was so effective, so I checked the ingredients and did some research.
Buddha nodded.
Interesting. What ingredients were there, and how did they make it so effective?
Krishna pulled out his phone and showed his research.
The ingredients included vitamin E, jojoba oil, coconut oil, and sunflower seed oil. Vitamin E is a powerful antioxidant that helps protect and regenerate the skin. Jojoba oil is well absorbed and highly moisturizing. Coconut oil softens and nourishes the skin. And sunflower seed oil is rich in vitamins A, D, and E, which are great for skin health. I found that these ingredients were as good as those in more expensive, well-known products.
Jesus nodded.
So, these ingredients work well together to benefit the skin. Are these ingredients also used in famous high-end products?
Krishna nodded.
Yes, they are. These ingredients are used in many famous high-end skincare products. But Trader Joe's vitamin E oil blend is affordable and uses natural ingredients, making it more trustworthy. I believe if more people knew about its value, it would become very popular.
Buddha deeply agreed.
How often did you use this oil? And what changes did you notice?
Krishna continued.
I used it twice a day, morning and evening, on my face and neck. I'd drop a few drops into my palm, rub them together to warm it up, and gently massage it onto my skin. The first week I didn't notice much change, so I started taking daily photos. From the second week I began to see changes. My skin felt softer and more hydrated. The photos showed the difference. After 2 weeks, my skin tone was more even and elastic. Small wrinkles faded and my skin looked healthier overall. After a month, friends began complimenting my improved skin. Comparing the daily photos later, I saw significant improvement. That's when I realized this vitamin E oil blend was truly effective.
Jesus, nodding, asked,
I see. So, these ingredients, though not famous, worked well together to benefit your skin. I had a completely opposite experience.
Krishna tilted his head.
Really? What was it?
Jesus began.
I once bought a very famous and popular car. But soon after, it was reported in the news for having a major airbag defect. The airbags didn't work properly, posing a great danger during accidents, leading to a massive recall.
Buddha asked deeply.
Can you explain more?
Jesus gave an example from the news.
I bought a car with Takata airbags. These airbags were supplied to various car manufacturers, and many believed they were safe. But a major problem arose. In 2016, a 17-year-old named Huma Hanif from Texas was driving a 2002 Honda Civic with Takata airbags when she had an accident. The airbag malfunctioned and exploded, sending metal fragments that killed her. Huma died instantly when her neck was struck by the metal fragment from the airbag during a collision at a traffic light in Fort Bend County. After this incident, the severity of Takata's airbag defect became widely known. Takata airbags had inflator defects that couldn't handle internal pressure, causing explosions that sent metal fragments toward the driver and passengers. This defect led to multiple deaths and hundreds of injuries, resulting in millions of vehicles being recalled worldwide, and Takata eventually went bankrupt.
Krishna, shocked, said,
That's terrible. Such accidents should never happen.
Jesus nodded.
Yes, those incidents were a huge shock. I felt very anxious driving that car and eventually received a recall notice and had the airbags replaced. Despite the safety recall, the process was very disappointing.
Krishna nodded.
So, unlike my experience, you learned that being famous doesn't always mean being safe or effective.
Jesus nodded.
Yes, I learned that fame doesn't guarantee good results. That experience taught me that true value lies in the actual effectiveness of the product, not its fame.
Buddha deeply agreed.
And the attitude of receiving the teachings is also important. No matter how good the teachings, if not practiced, they're useless. Like you diligently applied the oil and observed the progress, our teachings must be practiced to be meaningful. Unpracticed teachings are as good as unreceived.
Krishna smiled.
Exactly. For our teachings to bring true change, people must receive and practice them with the right attitude. It's not just about following because it's famous, but understanding and embracing the true value.
Buddha looked at Krishna and said,
Your story is fascinating. The important thing is not how famous a product is, but what impact it has on people. The same goes for our teachings. If more people experience our teachings and understand their value, they can experience true change. I hope you keep pushing forward, Krishna. Even if Jesus and I are more famous, it doesn't mean we are superior.
Jesus added,
So, Krishna, your teachings can be understood in the same context. Just because people don't know much about it doesn't make it any less important.
Krishna nodded.
Jesus, your words give me strength. My teachings and religion might be less known, but they contain deep truths and benefits, just like Trader Joe's vitamin E oil blend. If people recognize their value, they can experience great changes.
Their conversation heated up. As Krishna was about to ask a question, a man at a nearby table, the largest of his group, shouted,
Hey, you three, keep it down! It's annoying to listen to all this religious talk. You all build grand churches, temples, and cathedrals, and live lavishly, yet talk about serving others? It's infuriating. Right, Ralph?
The man called Ralph replied,
Yeah, most of the churches, temples, and cathedrals I've seen are grand. Religious leaders build these magnificent places with huge donations and live well, giving sermons once or twice a week. It seems like an easy job. What do you think, Jimmy?
Jimmy responded,
True. Big buildings are a waste of money. That money should go directly to help the poor. It's hypocritical.
Ralph added,
And some religious leaders passing their positions and wealth to family is a bigger issue. It's no different from profit-driven corporations. Religion is straying from its original purpose.
Jesus spoke to the first man who shouted,
May I ask your name?
Me? I'm Cooper. What's your name?
My name is Jess.
Jesus replied and immediately continued speaking, looking at each of them one by one.
Those grand buildings provide many people with awe and spiritual experiences. If worshippers feel deeper faith and find spiritual peace there, isn't that also valuable?
Jimmy responded,
But isn't it more important to help the poor directly with that money?
Buddha said,
Of course, that's important too. But many religious buildings hold cultural and historical significance, helping preserve and pass down religious teachings to future generations.
Ralph pondered.
That doesn't justify religious leaders accumulating and passing down wealth.
Exactly!
Cooper chimed in.
That's a serious issue. Religious leaders must uphold high moral standards. Accumulating and passing down wealth is not their responsibility. Religious communities and followers should not tolerate such behavior.
Krishna calmly replied. Cooper, sounding angry, asked,
Then why don't religious people stop this from happening?
Buddha, looking at Cooper, answered,
That's where religious people must continue to strive. Religious leaders should not abuse their positions, and the wealth they receive should be used for their followers and society.
Jesus added,
Cooper, as a religious person, I am truly sorry that you feel angry about this. I apologize. The teachings of religion are about detachment from greed and attachment. If religious leaders do not follow these teachings, as you say, it is a significant and shameful issue. The important thing is for religious leaders to always reflect on their values and principles and act accordingly.
Hearing this, Cooper asks Jesus.
Is it over?
Then he stands up and shouts,
Jimmy, Ralph, let's get out of here. This conversation has ruined my mood for coffee. Nowadays, people like them are everywhere. Religious people always make excuses.
Hearing Cooper's words, Jimmy and Ralph gulped down their remaining coffee and followed Cooper out. After they left, Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna remained silent for a while. Then, someone suddenly wrapped his arms around Jesus and Buddha's shoulders from behind and said,
Not because of the shame they faced, but because reflection was their needed grace.
It was the voice of the cool Dashan. Startled, Buddha turned around and said,
Dashan, what are you doing here?
Dashan replied,
My music agency is just across the street. I come here often.
Jesus said,
Oh, I see. But what did you mean by what you said earlier?
Actually, I came in about 5 minutes ago. I saw you guys and noticed you were having a serious conversation with some men. So I eavesdropped from a safe distance without getting noticed. Haha. And I realized you all are religious. I sensed a slightly mystical vibe from both Jez and B.
Dashan replied.
So what did you mean by what you said earlier?
Buddha asked impatiently.
Oh, that. I spontaneously muttered it based on the situation like a musician. You guys were momentarily speechless, not out of shame, but because you were reflecting as if the wrongdoing of someone in your group was your own fault.
Dashan explained. Krishna, observing the situation, spoke up.
Who?
Let's all introduce ourselves. This is Dashan, and this is,
Buddha hesitated and looked at Krishna.
My name is Chris. Nice to meet you.
Krishna said.
Oh, right, Chris.
Buddha said, flustered. Krishna looked at Dashan and said,
By the way, Dishon, you really look and sound like a singer, like a rapper.
Wow, you guessed right, Chris. He's indeed a singer, a rapper. You nailed it.
Jesus quickly said. Krishna asked Dashan,
Can you tell me what songs you've performed?
My latest track is Old Marvel Vibes. It's a song reminiscing the old Marvel movies. I don't really like the recent ones. They're like the trendy Lego blocks flooding the market. The classic Lego from my childhood required creativity to assemble. The real Lego. Marvel movies are like that. There are too many spin-offs now. Spin-offs aren't bad per se, but if you make them well. Sorry, I talk too much. Ha ha ha. Anyway, I'm not a famous rapper. People barely recognize me outside of where I usually perform, but it's okay. Someday I'll be famous too.
Dashan said, fiddling with his hands.
Dishon, what you just said resonates with the conversation Jess B and I had earlier. I understand the feeling of not being widely known.
Krishna winked at Buddha and Jesus before continuing.
Being more famous doesn't mean being greater. But there are things you can achieve only by becoming famous. Like the Grammy Award you aim for as a musician. While practicing your craft is crucial, understanding and effectively using modern systems is equally important, like online platforms, social media, and various digital resources.
Right, Chris? Utilizing various social media and YouTube seems very important. I've been studying those areas diligently.
Dashan said. Krishna, with a serious expression, spoke again.
But Dishon,
Yes, Chris?
Dashan replied.
there's something more important than those two.
Really? More important than those? What is it?
It's that you must love people more than they love you. When they feel your love, they will love you even more. And when you feel their love, you'll create even more beautiful music. And they'll love you even more. It's an endless cycle of positive feedback. The same goes for the religious world. It's a brutally simple truth that's easily overlooked because it's so simple.
Chris replied. Hearing Krishna's wise response, Jesus and Buddha applauded and gave thumbs up. Krishna, feeling shy, scratched his head. Seeing Krishna, Jesus, and Buddha said,
The best response to love is,
Love?
let's go.
Jesus said,
Where to?
Trader Joe's.
Why?
To buy all the vitamin E oil blend.
Deshaun, are you coming?
Don't ask. I'm already on my way.